Well, today we're going to talk about gong mallets, different types of gong mallets. I hope you'll find this informative. If you're considering buying a gong, or you've already got a gong and you're not satisfied with your mallets, or you're really confused about which are the best mallets to get. So many people these days buy Paiste gongs. They're the go-to German manufacturer for many of the gongs that new gong players buy. It's not surprising really that what people tend to use or tend to be advised to use with their Paiste gongs are Paiste mallets, like these. Now this is an M1 Paiste mallet, this is an M3 Paiste mallet. They're both, in fact all this line of mallets are similar in construction. We've got one or two larger ones here on the frame. They've got this straight metal painted shaft with a hard beater which is made softer by the wool covering over the top, the white sheep's wool I think it is covering. One thing that's a bit confusing about these mallets is that I'm not sure whether they still do this Paiste on these, which are a couple of 3 years old now. They give you, on this gold band at the top, they give you a suggestion about which mallet it's designed for, which gong it's designed for. So this one, which is a Paiste M3 mallet, says recommended for a 24-inch gong, which is our little planetary Neptune under here. And if we play it, it certainly seems like a very nice gong and a very nice gong mallet combination. This smaller one, this M1, suggests that it's best for even smaller mallets. 22-inch, I think it says here. It's a bit faded, but of course this is also going to sound quite nice on our little 24-inch gong. Don't be put off by these instructions, because of course it sounds perfectly good, an M3 on a big meaty gong like our Paiste 38-inch gong we've got here, Paiste 38-inch symphonic, and the M3 is a perfectly good mallet to use on this, and as is our M1. As I said, there's one or two other Paiste mallets on our stand here. We've got a much bigger one here. This is an M6, which, so it tells me on the label, best for a 32 to a 36-inch gong. Well, that's actually smaller than this gong, but again, this is a pretty hefty mallet, and it is perfectly good on this size mallet, this size gong. M6. We're starting to get a bit big. This will still sound on a smaller gong, but my point really is that the smaller mallets will work on all different sizes of gongs, whereas once you get up to a size at this size and above, that they start becoming a bit unwieldy on smaller gongs of this size. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But as I said, basically any size mallet will work on a big gong. Paiste mallets. There's alternatives to Paiste mallets which are not dissimilar. They can sometimes be cheaper. They have a slightly different quality. I've got here, these are mallets that I use almost every day. These selections. These are Sona mallets. Very similar construction, similar kind of shaft, handle, holder, whatever you call it. Similar kind of head. I don't know what their character. They're they're based on that design, but they do have I suppose this is equivalent to our little N1, this white. They're colour coded, so this Sona white is equivalent, can you see, to our Paiste N1. It's got a slightly different shaped head, similar. This one's a bit more worn actually, but I think they're perhaps slightly different balance, very similar, but they're definitely worth checking out. I like those Sona mallets, a very similar design to the Paistes, worth checking out. Now, an alternative to these shafted mallets are these here, the chalk-in series of GM gong mallets. There's a GM1, a GM2 and a GM3, so we've got, I suppose they're all medium size, small medium, medium medium and large medium I would call them, but the big difference with the other mallets, the Paiste and the Sonas, is that they're wooden shafted, and that, can you see, they've got a slight nice little indentation in the shaft where you hold them. And these are very popular. Whenever I show these to students and other people, they're always really taken with them. And for people who like the wooden feel of these, they're a good alternative, a very good alternative I can recommend to the Paistes. The heads are similar, they're hard with centre with a sheep's wool, I think it's sheep's wool, coating. So they have a similar, slightly harder sound, subtly harder, but I think the real difference with these is that we have wooden shafts and people really like the balance and the feel of the wooden handles. Okay, there are other makers that make wooden shafts that we'll come to, but I wanted to show another set of really very different mallets. These are also actually happen to be chalk-ins. Chalk-in make a very wide range of percussion mallets for all sorts of percussion instruments, drums, xylophones, marimbas, gongs, marching band, drums, all sorts. These I know are made for gongs. This one I think might have been designed originally for another instrument. I'm not sure, maybe a xylophone. I'm not really sure, but it's certainly similar construction to these bigger ones, but we've got a set of three much harder kind of, I think they must have some kind of rubber ball inside here that's wound with wool, and it's like a stringy wool that they wound with, and they have a much harder sound. The bigger one of course sounds biggest. And then the small one here, which I particularly like, which really does bring out the upper harmonics of the gongs. Very different design to the other mallets that we've seen so far. All chalk-ins, and I can recommend at least one or two of these will really make for another different lot of tonal variety that you can make in your gong playing. We've been drawn to these matched pairs of mallets. I had an old pair of a matched pair which I used for a long time that got worn out, and these are made by Gongs Unlimited, the American gong retailer. I think they've got a similar kind of design to these chalk-in mallets, but they've got a softer ball in them. Then they're wool wound, but they've got a softer ball in them, they're larger. But these are matched, and they're designed for what they call rollers. They're designed to roll the gong. You can of course use them in other ways, but let's have a listen to see how these sound. rolling much more even and easy to play, particularly for beginners. These are still quite hard, so you can hear each individual beat of the roll. Here's a pair of really interesting, what they call rollers. This is made by Innovation Percussion. They're slightly, I'm not convinced about their balance. They've got very thin wooden shafts, these big heads. They're not actually particularly heavy because I don't know if you can see, they're actually very light. This is a very light interior with a sort of a fluffy, almost, I'm not sure whether it's wool or artificial or whatever, but they're designed to have to give us a really light, airy rolling sound. So let's try these and hear the difference. Well, I really like the sound of these. I think they really give a really beautiful rolling sensation. Of course, you can always use them for other gong strokes, but they're designed for the roll, and they really are a beautiful pair. I really like these. Innovation Percussion CLBD8 light rollers, they're called. Okay, well, moving swiftly on, and finally, when you've got larger gongs, then really to get the biggest, lowest tones out of them, then you really need big mallets. And this is the biggest one that we have here. This is a Paiste M7. Look at the size of this. This is a big brute, isn't it? Very effective on a gong this size, bigger gongs. Let's hear what this sounds like. Big and very expensive, but very effective on a larger gong. It's also not only very big and very expensive, but it's also very heavy, and I mean really heavy. I'm not sure how heavy, but it's several kilos, that's for sure, and so quite unwieldy to play. We like this. This isn't quite so big, it's not going to pack quite such a punch, but this is much lighter. The way it's designed, this, although it's a very thick shaft, is very light wood. It's got a very light, although compact head. This is a Sound Power GB2 by Vic Firth. Vic Firth, I think, make another mallet in this Sound Power range, which is even bigger, but also lighter. And so for people who really want the big sound without the big heavy mallet to have to play with, then something like this is really advisable. Now that perhaps isn't quite such a big fat and meaty sound as we got from our M7, but it's getting there, and I think the The larger sampan model probably really does get even further there. So that's a really interesting tip. Get a lighter big mallet and you don't get so much, you know, it's not quite so unwieldy. So I hope you enjoyed our lightning. These are some of my favourite mallets that I use every day in, day out. See you next time. Thank you very much for watching.